Try, if you don't succeed the first time, try again. Isn't that what somebody says? Isn't that what somebody somewhere says? There we go. Let's hope this is working. What we had was trying to work with a Bluetooth. Trying to work with a Bluetooth in my earphones, and the audio is just crappy. Just wasn't good. It just wasn't going to work. So we're going to go ahead and redo this again. We're just going to move forward and pretend that ridiculousness didn't happen, even though it did. All right. I'm going to wait for a few more people to join in here, and then we're going to go. So on today's story, I had an email from former police officer down in Portland, and he sent me the story that we're going to read first one. Dramatic confrontation between migrants and New York City cops ends with one booted from Randall's Island shelter. You may have heard of Randall's Island shelter, but what you're not hearing is exactly how much violence is coming out of this migrant shelter. And the big story is, to me, is that mainstream media is just, they are not covering it. We're going to do a quick search and we're going to look at that. So let's go ahead and we're going to hop on in to, I'm going to get this going again. We're going to hop on in to this story. Give me one more second here. There's the live one. Come on, baby. You can do it. There we go. Live chat. We're up. Kill that audio. We got so many different audio going on here. All right, let's do the intro and let's get into this one. Dramatic confrontation between migrants and New York City cops ends with one being booted from Randall's Island shelter. You may have been hearing about Randall's Island shelter or not. And that to me is the big story. Mainstream media is not covering this because this is not a good look. Oh, we got 3,000 illegals in this one shelter and they are going ham on one another and the police. What do we got going on? Let's get into it. Here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off, we're going to check out a TikTok video. Now, I know everybody is just so anti-TikTok. And they're anti-TikTok because for a good reason. TikTok's a Chinese app. It's basically combing all of our data. But you got some video on TikTok that's going on. We need to check it out. All right, let's take a quick peek here. This is pretty wild stuff. You know what? There we go. How about that? And it's mostly peaceful. I mean, they're mostly not rioting, right? They're really having to do work on this one kid. Cops are just trying to get a situation under control. Do you think this is maybe why they don't want us to see this? This is not a good look. Just stuff being thrown. he has done this before, hasn't he? He has done that before. He's been arrested before. He is no slouch to resisting. $3,000 in Randall's Island, New York City. It's the biggest migrant shelter there is. That is just a powder keg waiting to happen. Everybody knows it. Security is like, man, I don't know about this. Yeah, this isn't what I signed up for. I didn't sign up for just a brawl. Somebody throw me a message. Well, I know this bad boy's working in the live chat. Imagine piping that into ABC, CBS, and NBC on the nightly. You think that might change things a little bit? Might change people's perspective of what's going on? Just a scooch. So it's not shocking that we are not seeing this on news at 11, right? I mean, we're just not. So let's go through. So I did the quick search just to kind of see, hey, all right, so the hypothesis is this story really isn't getting out. These incidents aren't really getting out. Now, the New York City one, you could not avoid that. Thank you for the messages. Got it. We're up and working. The New York City, the one in Times Square, you could not avoid, right? It was just, it's in Times Square. That was where the couple of cops were just taking a beat down. Couldn't avoid that one. You've got a handful of stories on that one, and that made some national media. But this one was in Randall's Island. It was in one of the big structures that they're housing people there. And the more I dug, well, let's just take a look. So I Googled New York Police Department officers attack detaining migrant Randall Island. Some pretty basic keywords, right? That should kick up. That should give me, a ton of stories. First one is by police that we're going to look at, a police network. All right, so the cops, and not shocking that the police are like, holy cow, this is wild. This is a crazy story. Next down, Fox News. All right, migrants hurl bottles, backpacks at New York Police Department during shelter fracas. Yes, that's what it was. It was an out of control deal where the cops are trying to, get one kid that who knows what he did. Been a bunch of rumors about, well, what actually happened there? Did he have a gun? We don't know. Third story down, Daily Mail. They, and so you've got two pretty conservative networks covering. And then next one down, you've got migrant attack, video captures assault in New York City. And then we go from that to New York, a person expelled from a shelter after attacking several immigrants and police. And then you kick down. So no major NBC, CBS on the regular, no regular New York City. The fourth or the fifth story down is we kick down to the indicted at stabbing death at Randall's Island migrant shelter. So you've got a couple of major networks that everybody knows. Okay, those are more right leaning. And then you've got nothing. You've got nothing. There should be story after story after story on this, but the networks aren't covering, mainstream media isn't covering it because it's such, you saw the footage. This is a terrible look. And this puts more pressure on the fact that illegal immigration is wildly out of control. So, the southern border is wildly out of control. And now the northern border is taking a whack. I mean, you've just got some crazy stuff going on, right? And the media doesn't want to cover it because it looks so bad. Now, here's that same video footage from a slightly different angle there. And this is the story we're going to read. So dramatic confrontation, yeah, that was some drama. You had a beatdown going on there earlier, probably in that sequence. You get a couple of migrants going at it, and then you got the cops coming in. One person was booted from the increasingly lawless Randall's Island. Yeah, it is lawless. You got somebody was stabbed in the neck. We're going to read about that. You had a kid got murdered. 24-year-old kid got murdered at Randall's Island. How much are you hearing about that? Not much, right? Like hardly at all. I saw this video on TikTok when it came out because TikTok carries a lot of stuff that other areas won't because, Chinese kind of just let anything go. So you'll see stuff on there you won't see elsewhere. And that's why I follow it from that component of this is another news angle. The chaotic scene kicked off around 11 a.m. Thursday. Just a mostly peaceful, no real shenanigans going on Thursday, 11 a.m. when police responded to reports of a man causing a disturbance at the shelter, according to authorities. Upon arrival, officers observed a man who was involved in a verbal dispute with security and acting in a disorderly fashion. New York City Police Department spokesperson told the Post. The person was removed from the premises. No injuries were reported. In other words, yeah, let's keep this one on the down low. This doesn't look good. This isn't good. This doesn't throw out the narrative that we want, which is that the illegals are peaceful. And that's what we're told time and time and time again. Yeah, when you bring this many people through, you're going to have a couple of bad apples. But that beatdown in Times Square and this incident that just happened, little stabby action at the same Randall's Island. You had one of the migrants got wildly drunk and he was just throwing down with the police. I mean, you've got some chaos going on. You've got some shenanigans. Police later clarified that the man was removed from the immediate area so the situation didn't escalate. I would say, the one young lady here, she got hit in the kind of the shoulder with a chair. I mean, it was flying over. I would say it had already escalated. This situation already escalated. You saw the video. I mean, a bunch of people shouting and screaming. That wasn't just, some people sitting in church going, amen. They were screaming at the cops. They were screaming at the security. They were screaming at whoever. Ah! Law enforcement sources said officers arrested one person, but the prosecutors declined to move forward with the case, resulting in the arrest being sealed. Huh? What? More information wasn't immediately available. Huh. That's interesting. Weird. Bottom line is these guys know they're going to get away with whatever because they're in the immigration process, right? They've already been kicked across the border by border protection or however they got into the country. They're waiting for their work permit. They've got a piece of paper that doesn't say anything about who they are, but just says that they have a case pending. So therefore, they're not going to get detained by ICE and sent back across the border from whence they came or home. They're not going to get sent home, and they know it. And so they have no issues throwing down with the cops. None. Just, and then you've got a bunch of gang rivalries going on, right? I mean, what could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Meanwhile, mainstream media, just, stuff coming out of Randall's Island. Shh. Pretend it's not happening. Maybe it'll go away. Let's just keep this on the hush hush till the election's over. And then, we'll do a big expose. Video of the incident shows a man in a white t-shirt and dark pants sparring with several police officers in plain view of a large crowd, as you do at 11 o'clock on Thursday. No real shenanigans here. It's mostly peaceful. It's okay. Imagine having your little kids in that environment, right? Some onlookers eventually jumped into the fray, even nailing one female officer in the head with a backpack before the man was held down. Yeah, we saw that happen. It's not clear what led to the scuffle or what the unruly man was doing there. In one, was it another video I saw? A quick video. Somebody said something about maybe it was over a girl. It's probably over a girl, right? You got 3,000 of them. They're all just sitting around waiting for their work visas, waiting for whatever. Maybe they're doing a little scooter action down at the illegal scooter center. Who knows? Maybe they're panhandling. Maybe they're out, scrubbing down people's windshields with some dirty water and pretending they're making it better and hoping that you give them a quarter or a nickel or whatever. The whole thing is just hosed, isn't it? I mean, the situation. Manuel Eduardo, 24, said that the man did not live at the shelter. Well, then what's he doing there? But may have tried to stay the night there after looking for his mother, who was being housed at the tent city. His mother? Okay. All right. I mean, unlikely. He's looking for a chick. At first, security approached him and asked the man to leave. From there, his resistance to their request led to police being invited into the discussion. We would like to discuss what is going on, and we may need you to put on these nice silver bracelets that we've come prepared with. Said this was from Eduardo, a migrant from Venezuela, told the Post Tuesday. At first, 2 cops showed up, then 2 became 4, and 4 quickly turned to 8. They really struggled with him, he said. So we got 8 cops taking down 1 kid. What happens if you have more than 1 kid go sideways on you, right? One of these. And you know that's going to happen. At what point do you say, enough is enough? You got to do something about this whole scenario. And all of you sanctuary cities bringing these folks in, look at the powder keg that you are creating. You're literally creating a situation that could, boom, go off like that. So the 2 men started fighting, and when the cops tried to intervene, that's when people started hurling bottles and bags. Yamayo, a migrant from Kazakhstan, asked, one of the many, many stands. Yamayo recalled lots of yelling and fighting, but was not sure what sparked the fight. Nobody knows. Now, the issue is it happened, right? And with 3,000 of them just basically, in a huge tent-like structure, I'm sure it's going to be fine. I mean, a little stabbing action to the neck. I mean, things are going to happen. Ugh, yeah, no wonder the mainstream media isn't carrying this, because this paints a slightly different picture of the mostly peaceful process that we're led to believe that the majority of these folks are coming into the country are peaceful. They're just running from violence. They're just running from economic depression. They're running to jobs. They're running to opportunity. Well, some of these guys are running to a brawl with the police. And that's what we're watching. That's what we're witnessing. But the rest of media doesn't really want to cover that because, you bring enough people into the country, you're going to have a couple of bad apples here or there. The issue I have is that you don't know who any of these players are. You have no idea. And gang members are coming in. But again, I'm sure all that'll work out fine. No shenanigans. There won't be any tomfoolery here, right? The shelter security and cops treated him like an animal, Eduardo insisted. No, I would disagree. It looked like they were taking him down per protocol, right? They were treating him like an animal, claiming that the unnamed man was a nice guy who only wanted to visit his mom. Well, what was he doing arresting the cops then? I mean, resisting arrest. What exactly was he doing? Why did he get thrown out? So many questions, so many unknowns, and he didn't get prosecuted. No charges. Just boop, done. It's unfair and inhumane kicking someone out into the cold, he said. This is that flip side. This is that narrative of they just need a roof over their heads. Well, when they're brawling and the police are called, that's a little different story, right? Yeah, it is. The investigation is ongoing, police said. The melee was terrifying but normal, said Akmarol Sabdiata Blabdieva, 21. He told the Post of the tent city. which has been plagued by issues since it sprung up in August of 2023. I have heard of Randall Island, and it's one of those things where you're like, I keep hearing that name. What's going on there? Randall Island, Randall Island, Randall Island. And so when this story kicked up, I'm like, well, there's got to be a ton of information on this whole Randall Island thing, right? There is not. Very few stories. And it's because nobody wants to cover it. Well, the migrants are just having their way with each other, and then the cops got to come every now and then, and it's what we're doing. Rogue migrants expelled from Big Apple shelters have also been setting up an illegal mini tent city outside the site and have been slinging weed. Uh-oh. Anybody that's reasonable could have seen this coming from 100 miles away and just said, this is a terrible idea. What are you thinking about? What are you doing? And right now, so many of these big sanctuary cities are at that struggle bus spot of, well, I know we committed all this money to helping out the illegals, but our budgets are not going in the right direction. New York City and Chicago being the two primaries. Washington, D.C., struggle bus, but Washington, D.C. is always a struggle bus. Denver, huge struggle bus there, right? they can't quite figure out what to do. And meanwhile, at the southern border, Greg Abbott has pushed all this pressure up the West Coast, and California is going to get inundated. They are being inundated right now. One of my next topic today will be what those numbers look like. And right now, 71% of the illegals coming in through the southern border, they're not going in through Texas. They're not going through the Del Rio sector. They're going in through California. They're going in through Arizona and a little bit through New Mexico. So you can only imagine, so 3,000 person tent, New York City, have a couple of those in LA. I'm sure it'll be fine. Crips and Bloods, I mean, they like to party. So, how is this going to go down? It's a powder keg waiting to happen. And yet you're seeing those kind of small explosions happen every now and then. This is one of them. So police have been inside the shelter at all times since 24-year-old Daphne Canese-Ellis was knifed to death. I mean, it was mostly peaceful, mostly the work among themselves, except for when there's a, knifing action. Somebody lost their life, right? And we're not hearing much about that. You'll hear a little story here or there. It's because they want to portray this as, it's all good. It's all good. You bring millions of people into the country and you don't know who they are and pretend that it's all good. Well, logic would say otherwise, right? The suspect, who was Moises Coronado, allegedly asked security cards to let him finish the job moments after the bloody stabbing. Cameras have already been installed in the Randall Island site, and a review is still ongoing as to installing metal detectors as well. Chief of Staff Joseph Vlark said Tuesday afternoon, we have, I think, the numbers here, 3,000 men in the facility, the overwhelming number of them looking to take the next step in the journey, talking about legal, becoming a U.S. citizen and being able to operate here legally. This quote from Mayor Eric Adams. He said of the Randall Islands incident during the press conference, just put it on the down low. We'll just kind of ignore what's going on, and maybe this will go away. Maybe it'll go away. Because, man, I got some budget problems. We got all kinds of budget problems going on, and I said I was going to commit money to this, and we don't have money for this. We're going to have to take over this school. We're going to have to take over this, take over that, because we just don't have the resources. And now, what I think is super interesting is that the Greg Abbott busing has taken place. That got hot and heavy over the wintertime, right? December, November, October, November, December. Lot of illegals coming through because there was this rumor that the border is going to get shut down. The one app that Customs and Border Protection has so that people can get on there and see if they can get into the U.S., that was going to be shut down. Neither the border was shut down nor the app was shut down. But people, they believe perception. There's also a perception that if Trump wins, he's going to deport everybody And so don't even bother trying to make you run into the country. So get into the country now. And so there's been this huge, huge push. And so you've got a situation over the winter time where you had literally hundreds of thousands of people, 302,000 in December, come through the southern border. Well, now that has slowed down. They're going to California, they're going to Arizona. Now you've got the good weather coming. That was during the slow times. So now that we're really going to ramp up since January, and since Greg Abbott has basically blocked off the Texas avenue of getting in, you're going to have more and more migrants come through because it's warmer weather. It's getting better, springtime down south. And it'll be interesting to see what the impact is on California for, the numbers that we're talking about. And the numbers are considerably larger than California or Arizona or New Mexico has ever seen. So it's because the cartel has made an adjustment. They're running a business. They came up against a roadblock. They came up against a buyer objection, which is, you're not getting us across the border. Well, now we are. We're going to go a little bit further out wide left, and then we're going to go a little further north, and we're going to take you up to Yacumba in California. We're going to take you an hour east of San Diego. We'll get you across the border there. Be a piece of cake. Don't worry. It'll work out. Do you have bad actors? Eric Adams said. And anytime you have 3,000 people who are placed in an environment that cannot work, where they cannot work, they have to sit around all day. Okay, but you knew this going into it. You knew this was part and parcel of bringing thousands and thousands and thousands of people who you don't know who they are into your city. So that's on you. That's on you, Eric Adams. This is on all of the mayors that just, what self-described, we're sanctuary cities. Now you've got areas in Colorado that are saying, yeah, not so much. We do not want to be a sanctuary city. Ixnay on that nay, right? Because it's not worth it to them. They're just staying out of it. The virtue signaling isn't worth the rub, which is you got to pay for them all once they get there. The police officers went in, carried out their job, and used the minimum amount of force to take the suspects into custody. And we're going to do a redo because of that video, Adams said, adding that he was briefed on the incident that morning and was expecting a follow-up meeting. Cops are just doing their job. Give me a break. This is what happens when you do this national problem on a city, he said. Yeah, but you welcomed the problem into your city by being a sanctuary city. Period. That's on you. It's on you, buddy. It's for Saltipivia, whatever that last name, who arrived just 1 month ago and knows nobody except for her friend Sasha. The Randall's Island tent city has been an okay place to start, but it's not a long-term solution. Well, living with 3,000 strangers typically isn't. But she showed the post a video of a separate altercation, which she said illustrated the realities of life at the facility. I want to leave. The food's bad and it's dangerous. Yeah, but it's free and you've got a roof over your head and it's dangerous. You knew that going in. Is it as dangerous as the Darien Gap? Is it as dangerous as riding the train from southern Mexico to northern Mexico? Is it as dangerous as facing up against Mexican police? Probably not. So, you're in the good old US of A. Your bills are going to be covered. You're going to have a roof over your head. At this point in time, you really can't complain. Adding that she eventually hopes to get a job in the hotel industry, which she worked in for 2 years in Dubai. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office did not immediately respond to the post's request for a comment on the incident. Yeah, hey, how about that brawl where they were whacking on the police officers there? What do you say about that, sport? Yeah, mum's the word, right? All right, so you got police one. New York Police Department officers attacked while detaining man at migrant shelter. Here's another one. This is straight. They're pitching themselves as news without a bias. Let's come down here. So since the start of 2024, a migrant was stabbed to death by another migrant in the food line. Just getting lunch. Somebody's life is ended. Yeah, mostly peaceful though. No real shenanigans. It's mostly peaceful. 2 weeks later, a security guard was stabbed in the neck, but survived. All right, okay, all right. 18 migrants were taken into custody following the incident. One migrant was arrested after fighting police while intoxicated. That dude was drunk. That's when you wake up and you go, oh, what did I do, senor? Oh, I've got a headache. Oh, yeah, you got into it with a cop there, Johnny. And this probably isn't going to go all that well for you. Actually, probably just goes fine, doesn't it? Oh, you're an illegal and you're waiting asylum. Oh, you've got a piece of paper that gives you a case number. You're golden. You're fine. It's all good. No cash bail. Just we'll let you go. It's all right. It's just keep doing your thing. You keep doing you. We'll keep doing us. And yeah. While these are some of the incidents that have happened on the island, another altercation caught on camera in Times Square. That's the other big one, right? There was two out in the open to hide. But these ones here, you're just not really hearing on your morning news or news at 11. You're not hearing that because it doesn't paint the picture of, oh, yeah, this is working out well. And hey, let's continue to bring a whole bunch of them into the country. Some of the things that are happening. Yeah, here we go. Here's this one. Security guard stabbed during fight outside migrant shelter on Randall's Island. I mean, you've got some real violence going on. If somebody gets killed, security guard stabbed. I mean, you can't avoid that. But my point to this podcast is you're hearing bits and pieces about this, but you're not hearing the mainstream news. Could you imagine if one of these incidents happened at like a Black Lives Matter rally? Could you imagine if one of these things happened? It would be front page news 24/7 straight for a week, wouldn't it? Because that would promote the narrative that, the mostly peaceful protesters have been taken advantage of, and a far right guy from the 3%ers, they went in and did a little stabby action. But because it's infighting, and it's infighting amongst a class that right now basically has protected status, we're just not hearing much about it because it's not good for the narrative, which is this will all work out fine. Sanctuary cities, we got this handled. We got this taken care of. Well, except for that one dude who got killed getting lunch. Yeah, except for. And moving forward, do you think this is going to get better or do you think this is going to get worse? The more time that is spent by these folks in these shelters, because it can be months and months before they get a work visa, right? And we still don't know who they are. We're just letting them come into the country. That's okay. Just go on in. It's fine. And, the California borders and the Arizona borders, those governors are not doing what Governor Abbott is doing down in Texas. So that's going to be just a train wreck. And what do you say? I mean, it's just going to continue. And they're going to be welcomed into the country until you have a story like this and it goes even more shenanigans and it goes further sideways. Migrant man busted for drunkenly fighting cops at Randall's Island shelter, sending one cop to the hospital. That's why I wanted to read this one. So you wonder why cops don't want to be cops? Because going to the hospital, they get dinged up. They've all got injuries, right? Just doing what they're doing. That woman, the female cop that took a backpack to the kind of the shoulder, kind of to the head. You saw her duck down. You saw her get whacked. She took a good bump there. But you go to your work during the day. Are you ever going to get in a fight with a drunken guy doing your job? Probably not. You're going to call 911 and expect Johnny Law to come up, show up, right? Make him a big one because this guy's really drunk. This guy's out of control. Send the cops up here. Would you like to have a social worker come and discuss how things are going, how people are feeling in this scenario? No, send a big cop, right? Send a big cop. And then last but not least, we've got jury indicts 7 in group of suspects accused of beating the New York Police Department officers. That story was so out in the open, you could not ignore it. You could not ignore it. And it was caught on so many different avenues of video. So there's a couple of different videos of the one we just saw, But for the large part, it's not out there. You're not going to see it. You might see it in a couple of small spots, like I showed you, like Libs of TikTok. That's a great channel. If you don't watch that one, I follow it on. I don't really do anything on TikTok. I follow Libs of TikTok on Instagram. Some of the stuff that they have is like, is this real? Are these people real? Because what they're doing makes absolutely no sense. And that's the beauty of Libs of TikTok. It's just got content. You're like, what? Huh? How'd we get here? So this story, look for these stories. Think of Randall Island when you're just listening to, that stuff in the background that you pick up bits and pieces on, and you're like, I should really follow up on that. Randall Island's where it's all going down, because you got 3,000 of these folks, basically in a shelter. And it's going to be fine. They're shenanigans moving forward should be very minimal. Some of the gang activity, yeah, right? And that's when you get some stabbings going on. Wild, wild stuff. All right. I'm going to wrap up this section because we've beaten this one to death. No pun intended. But thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for supporting. If you haven't subscribed already, I'd love to have you subscribe. Hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and I will see you on the next one. So for right now, we'll see you then. What was that for an outro? Tristan, you're going to have to cut that one up. Whack that little ending there. And for the rest of you, we're going to keep going. Got a couple more stories here. A couple more stories. That was my search there. How about this one? This one literally just ties into what I was talking about, and we kind of talked about it. But we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive of what this looks like and where people are actually going through. And this is what's going to kind of dictate what states are involved moving forward and what, some of the big narratives will be coming out of this, because Texas is putting up a battle, right? They're doing work. California, bring them in. It'll be fine. Never mind that whole Randall's Island stuff. We don't care. Bring them in. It's great. Greatest country ever. Greatest state ever. Being a sanctuary city. Being a sanctuary state. It's great. You're going to see some kickback on that. You're going to see some storylines that don't exactly work out, because the rest of us are sitting back going, you're doing what? You're inviting people into your homes? How about that story with Massachusetts and Michigan? We're going to need you guys as tax-paying constituents to bring some illegals into your homes. No, we don't really know who they are, but we believe that they're mostly fine. Every now and then they'll stab each other, but, that's not going to probably happen to your family. But bring them in. I mean, I'm sure your wife and your daughter's going to be, okay, 2 thumbs up. Let's give it a whirl. Let's just see how this goes. You got states out there doing that, right? And for the rest of us, you're like, oof, I don't know. That just doesn't seem all that safe, right? I mean, even if you're a bleeding heart liberal, most folks are like, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, no, I don't know who they are. Yeah, no thanks. I'll pass. All right, let's jump into this one. This is one that I kind of talked about and said, this is going to happen. And yeah, shocking. Here we are. Now it's happening. Here we go. California is hit with a surge of illegal border crossings as migrants abandon Texas. Not only migrants, the cartel in particular. We're going to take you out west a little bit, and then we're going to go El Norte. That's what we're doing. What do we have going on? Well, it's a free-for-all in California, Arizona, New Mexico. Let's get into it. Here we go. I gotta redo that. Gosh darn it. Sorry, folks. You are seeing error, what error looks like. So I need to do full screen there. Let's do that intro again. California hit with surge of illegal border crossings as migrants abandon Texas. It's a free-for-all. You know what's happened? The cartel has realized, Texas, we're no longer open for business. Let's go out west, and then we'll go up north. Let's go to California. Go west, young man. Go west. That is what the migrants are doing. They're headed to California. They're headed to Arizona. They're headed to New Mexico. Let's get into this. Let's see what this looks like. Here we go. All right. You know what? Got a really good video. I got a good video. And it's actually from Fox. It's on this sector. Sector. What am I talking about? Don't really know. Let's do this. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's in the middle of nowhere. That is the critical number. So 186,000, yeah, 182,000 in October, November, December, January, essentially, right? 4 months and change. You've got 180 plus thousand go through the San Diego sector, meaning those folks are going north into LA, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle. And some of them are going to also be going into, from Arizona, they're going to be going into Denver. So they're not headed east. They're not headed into New York City. That's 182,000. Now, the number that was bussed into, what was it? Was it New York City? The number that was bussed by Abbott in general to Chicago and New York City, DC, Philadelphia, a handful of those, is only out like 102,000. That's how many he's bussed. So you've already got a almost double that number going into San Diego. And what you're going to find is that the situation on the West Coast is just going to, it's going to escalate. You're going to have the same thing we just watched on Randall Island. You're going to have that in mass on the West Coast because these folks, this is where they're going. They're geographically, physically going there.
Right here knows it well. Chris Mueller, he lives in San Diego. He's a Marine. He's been taking video of the cartels and migrants crossings about, well, I guess you started about 4 or 5 months ago. Bill Malusian's been reporting for the past several days. We've had our reporters down there. We're going to show you what's happening down there. The southwest border in a 2,000-mile stretch. What we've done here is we've color-coded every sector, all right? Starting here in Texas, going to California. We're especially concerned about this right here. So you got the Del Rio sector, the Big Bend, El Paso, Tucson. Then you move over to Yuma, which straddles California and southwestern Arizona. And then we move over to San Diego. And Yacumba is that town where Bill Malusian's been reporting for the past several days. We've had our reporters down there. We're going to show you what's happening down there, specifically in Yacumba. It's not in the middle of the nowhere, but if you were driving in Southern California along Interstate 8, Freeway 8, as they say in California, you see rocks and mountains, and it's not the most hospitable place to find some crossings or even to live. And on the Mexican side of the border, you'd have to go almost 10 miles to find the closest road down here. That's how long the stretch has been. And this is what's happening. These are encounters in the San Diego sector going back 4 years. Go back to 2021, about 40,000, right? 2022, about 70,000. Now you jump up to 106,000. Look where we are in fiscal year 2024. It's only been 5 months, folks. Right? You're up at 182,000. And who are they? Where do they come from? Well, going back to 2021, you had 450 Chinese nationals who crossed at that particular point. And look what's happening now. Over the past Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, 3 days of this week, we've already eclipsed that number over the entire year in that southern border area, and you got 452 crossing the San Diego sector. The cartels know what's up. The Chinese nationals who fly into Mexico and make their way to the border, they know what's up. And this gentleman right here knows it well. Chris Mueller, he lives in San Diego. He's a Marine. He's been taking video of the cartels and migrants crossings about.
We're not going to watch him, but if you want to check out that segment, it's just Fox News on that clip. And he basically goes on, the Marine goes on to say, hey, well, we're going to read about him. But he goes on to say, people are just waltzing in. They're just waltzing across the border with earphones in like they're YouTubers. It's so true. And some of the footage that I've watched at Yakumba, it's been people with hard suitcases, right? I mean, not soft backpacks that you're going to carry for a long while. Suitcases on wheels, got the earphones in, they're well dressed. They're literally just buying their way into the United States, and they're going through the southern border because they know that the cartel is going to get them in. And this is an easy game to play, because Customs and Border Protection just basically brings them in and says, yep, here you go. Here's your little piece of paper. Give us your name. And they give some fake name, and, because they're running from something. There's something going on. Or you just don't know. You have no idea what's going on. It's crazy. Let's take a look at this story. So the numbers are what I wanted you to focus on there. This past weekend, when you had in 3 days eclipsing all of 2021. That is for Chinese nationals. So that is kind of the big story right now. But even bigger than that is just the sheer numbers coming across the southern border, going to California and going to Arizona. Because what I was saying in that other segment that I butchered because I had the audio screwed up, but what I was saying is that Greg Abbott has bused just over 100,000 people from Texas to, you call it Chicago, New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., those sanctuary cities. He's bused 102,000. And look at the pressure it's putting on those cities. Now, California already has a massive homeless problem, right? They don't have the resources to deal with this. They're knee deep in a quagmire that is called California. And so when you shift this pressure up to the West Coast, best coast, some would argue with that, but I live on the West Coast, so I'm going to always throw that out there just to upset people. It's not the best coast. It's terrible. Don't ever go to Seattle. All right. Well, the migrants are coming here. Because they're getting pushed up that way because Texas is no longer, open for business. Cerrado, right? It's closed. So how's that going to go moving forward? That's the story that I'm kind of watching. Is I'm sure it'll be fine. It should be okay. It should be all right. California is battling a free-for-all of illegal border crossings as migrants shift away from Texas and head west. San Diego resident and Marine veteran Chris Mueller, that's the guy that you're going to hear talk, who is at the southern border filming a documentary, called what he is witnessing a slap in the face to the brave Americans who sacrificed their lives for their country. It is. And for anybody else looking in, you're like, what is the government doing? Oh, they're just welcoming a ton of people into the country. Now, there was a court case yesterday in New York City. An appeals court just basically said, no, all of these illegal folks in our country, in the city, they can't vote in local elections. So that has been consistently upheld. So it could, because you might want to say, well, they're just bringing them in for their votes. It's not happening on the local level yet. That's kind of the big caveat there, right? It's like, we haven't seen that happen. but, right? And it's whenever you have a conversation with somebody and they're going to go with this statement, and then you hear them say, but forget all the other crap. It's everything after the but that they really wanted to tell you. The other stuff was just kind of a qualifier for, well, I want you to believe this about me, but here's what I really think. I served my country and I protected those border walls, and to see people walk across like it's no big deal, it's concerning, right? There's that word, concerning. Nah, it's frustrating. It's angering. It's, yeah, drive one crazy. Concerning? Yes, but more than that. That word to me is concerning because it usually indicates shenanigans, but nobody wants to say it, right? And that's why we use the word shenanigans, because it's code word for hell breaking loose, right? I mean, everybody knows that. I actually heard Tim Pool say it a couple of times during a segment the other day. And I was like, hey, you can't say that. That's not an East Coast word. No, Tim, no. English language, it's not available for all. It's a free for all. I see people cross. I got pictures of people like they're YouTube influencers with their earpiece in, walking, listening to Spotify as they cross the border like it's a big joke. Well, because the United States government, federal government, Customs and Border Protection has made it a joke. And not even just a joke, they have literally just welcomed people in and just, given them a piece of paper and they're all good to go. Border protection, that is literally the name of that entity. There's no protecting the border right now. It's a free-for-all, except in Texas. And you can see the pressure that that's putting on the rest of this whole equation. People got to go elsewhere. The other big story that's going to be coming down the pike is the northern border is basically the eastern end of the border, East Coast, Canada. That's going to be a huge story. You're going to see way more pressure go that direction as well. People flying into wherever, Toronto, wherever, and then, getting brought across the Canadian and U.S. border. The problem there is that so much of that border just has more population. Like the guy from Fox was saying, the area in Jacumba it's pretty remote. And so I heard recently that the 4-foot wide gap in the wall at Jacumba at the hot springs, that's been filled with razor wire. Okay, but it doesn't take that much of a walk to figure out another spot in the fence, because this is remote country. This is kind of high desert mountain terrain in San Diego, where they're coming through an hour east of San Diego. You just keep going further east, you're going to be able to get through the border somewhere. So these folks are going to be able to get in. Whereas with Canada, yeah, there's some remote forests and things like that. Terrain is different. There's just far more population that end than, hour outside of San Diego. A lot of desert, it's just, can't imagine doing like a 10-mile walk through that desert, heat of the day, doing a couple of days of that. That's why so many people die there, they die in that heat. It's a slap in the face to every American that's fought and died for this country. I don't disagree, because it kind of makes a mockery of the whole situation, right? You're like, wait a minute, why do we even have borders? And the far left would say, yeah, why do we even have borders? Let's get rid of them. Let's just move them on. I mean, we don't need borders. Yeah, they're fine. And the classic example of that is the first thing that happened over at CHOP in Seattle, multi-block area that was taken over by Black Lives Matter and Antifa. They immediately set up borders. They set up border checkpoints. I remember one of the reasons I wanted to go over there and just kind of look around, old man style with the GoPro, and was because I had heard from one of my real estate brokers, Sean, you're not going to be able to get through the checkpoints at CHOP. And I'm like, it's in Capitol Hill. It's in a park. It's at Cal Anderson Park area. Borders, you having to get through checkpoint Charlie. So I went over there, and the checkpoint, there were no checkpoints. There was big concrete barricades brought there by Seattle Parks Department, Seattle Public, whatever it was. It brought them there to appease the rioters, to appease the mostly peaceful protesters lighting the town on fire. No, Seattle literally welcomed them to the area with their own set of barricades because they could put up their own wall, because immediately after establishing their territory, they didn't want to let anybody else in. They wanted to be able to make sure that they knew who was coming and going. So, this whole notion of let's tear down the borders, yeah, that works only in somebody's messed up head where they haven't really thought through this whole deal. You're seeing examples of that happen in front of you in real life nonstop. You're seeing Eric Adams in New York City. He's going down one direction, then he realizes, good Lord, that's expensive. We can't afford to pay all that money. And then he's going a different direction. Let's go, Brandon Johnson. He has committed so many different avenues that he's going to go, and then he pulls out. You got shot spotter technology. He's pulling out of that. But we got to keep that in place for the Democratic National Convention just long enough so nobody important gets shot and killed, because we know the technology works, but my constituents don't like it because it brings more cops to the neighborhood. And, we can't have that. So you've got all of this just crazy stuff going on. And so much of it is these cities have brought it upon themselves. They raised their hand and they said, I am a self-sanctuary city. I'm a self-described sanctuary city. And then you get all this crap. So California, to me, that's going to be the interesting one, because it's already so behind the eight ball. Imagine being, you're coming in from China and you're going to go to LA and somebody drops you off in the Skid Row. Is this Los Angeles? Right? Or San Francisco, you get a little too close to the Tenderloin. I'm sure that'll work out right. Notably, the numbers in Texas Del Rio sector, which includes Eagle Pass, that's where I was a couple of times, have fallen off a cliff. Huh, interesting. And then you've got President Biden, Fearless Joe, Sleepy Joe. He is threatening to take executive action, folks. He's going to do a little end around of the whole legal system. He's just going to shut down the border on his own. You mean like Greg Abbott is doing? Huh, interesting. Literally, same thing. He's going to do the same thing. He's going to take action and shut the border down. Executive action. It'll get shut down in court, right? What's so funny about that is he is already trying to, via lawsuits, trying to get the border opened up. Oh, cut that razor wire. That's not humane. And let our border protection agents in that aren't really protecting the border. Huh. So much of this head scratching stuff, because he needs to be able to say to America, I'm doing my job. I know that this whole immigration thing is a real problem, despite the fact that I did 64 executive orders in my time as president, weakening the border. Yeah. Just allowed mass parole, just catch and release, mass parole. Border protection can't really protect the border. I mean, they've been given the from higher up, from the president, don't turn anybody back around. Bring them on in. We'll give them a little number and they'll be good. And give them a court date 6-7 years down the road. I'm sure they'll show up. Bond, let's reduce that bond. We haven't talked about that a lot, but the bond that most of these illegals are getting now is roughly half of what it was under Trump. And if you have a $4,000 bond, oftentimes people will walk on that because you got $400 at stake. You got a $10,000 bond, you got $1,000 at stake. That's a big difference. So the difference is at $400, you walk, meaning you blow off your bond. Yeah, come find me. Come find me among the 7.4 million people or 7.3 million people we know have flooded the United States per Customs and Border Protection. Those are their numbers. Yeah, but it's mostly peaceful. I mean, it's going to work out. It'll be fine. Just ask Randall Island. Yeah, right? So the sector, so we talked about the numbers have fallen off a cliff in Eagle Pass. In December, the sector saw days of 3,000 to 4,000 people coming through. Over the last week, it's averaged around 200. When I was there, if there was a couple of groups that got busted, that was big news. And before that, they were literally just swarming across the Rio Grande where I walked on the Mexico side. That was the story. He said, hey, some Yahoo from Seattle with the camera can walk along like a visitor and it looks like pristine park territory. Whereas just a couple of months before, you would have seen literally thousands of people in siege style go across the river into the United States because the word has been sent out. The United States is open for business. Business is good. Go to America. You're going to get in. It's going to be a piece of cake. No problem. No issues. So that has created this vacuum that we're dealing with now. Now the vacuum is going up left coast, and should be interesting. Should be entertaining. Mueller said that he's noticed the uptick firsthand, having been at the border weekly for the past few months doing his documentary. You can see the change, he told Bill Hummer. Doesn't shock me at all. This is where the numbers are going. This is where the numbers we're seeing. The Chinese one to me is an interesting one. That's, I mean, yeah, that one to me is like, whoa, what do we got going on here? Mainly 18 to 24 aged Chinese young men. What's happening there? Yeah, what's happening there? Let me know in the live chat. What do you think is happening there? Lifelong San Diego County resident and Army veteran Cozy Gattaro told Fox News Wednesday he fears a massive national security risk from the surge and described migrants easily walking into California through gaps in the border wall. 60 Minutes just documented the F out of that, didn't they? They're just like, yeah, all right, here's 600 of them that just came through. We've been here for a handful of hours and 600 came through. And what is California going to do about that? Big nothing. Big fat nothing. I would like to personally invite, speaking of California, Governor Newsom, and I will take him all along the border and show him the massive humanitarian crisis happening, he told Fox and Friends Wednesday. But this is planned. This is literally what the Biden administration wanted. And it's happening. Thousands and thousands and thousands, millions of people coming into the country. We don't know who they are. We're not vetting them. We're just, it should work out just fine. They get stabbed in the neck, right? So because these are also people, I know they're illegal. We don't want them here, but they're still human beings. It's 40 degrees out right now. It's pouring rain, and there's people out there freezing right now. They knew weather could happen. They knew before they went down this road, you know what? Pouring rain, freezing, they are not out in 110-degree desert with no water. So, you want to feel bad for people, but then you're also like, this is what you signed up for. Whatever you are escaping from is apparently, you've come to what you wanted to come to. The dramatic increase in Chinese illegal immigration is on track to break records at the southern border, with apprehensions from the communist country in the San Diego sector already eclipsing fiscal 2021 in just a few days. That was last weekend. Last weekend that happened. So you've got a big push. And I don't know if you know this, China's got a lot of people. They got a lot of people. How many of those people are going to come to our country that we don't know who they are, what they're doing, and what they're, planning on doing? Yeah. I mean, just whole thing is just wacky and sideways, right? Shenanigans, I say. U.S. Customs and Border Protection sources tell Fox News that between Saturday and Monday, 452, that's more than the 450 in all of 2021. It's a brigade, Galtiero said, adding that while National Guard members from other states have been sent to California, they are operating in an observation mode. They kick back, they look around and go, that's happening. Literally, that's what they do. How frustrating would that be? You go into the border? Yeah, you're going to send some illegals back? No. Going to hold their hand as they cross the Rio Grande. Oh, okay. Instead of being hands-on with crossings, Texas under Republican Governor Greg Abbott has taken measures, we know about that, to deter migrants from crossing, and it's working. That's the one thing that I always come to from an appraisal standpoint, is that you had Trump with his numbers, record low numbers across the border, illegal border crossings. And then you've had Biden with record high numbers. And then you've got the third phase, which is what Abbott is doing in Texas. And he is basically just pushing the whole story up to the West Coast. Yeah, and New Mexico. That's just not a big area. And I think there's so many more people that are headed to, somewhere in California, maybe somewhere in Oregon or Seattle, somewhere along the West Coast there. But so you can see when you protect the border under Trump, record numbers low. When you don't, and you encourage people to come from all over the world, yeah, well, numbers skyrocket. And then when you protect the border under Abbott, what direction have those numbers go? We just read what direction those numbers go because we can see on a map. All right, yeah, they're not sending tons and tons of people through Texas anymore. Texas is no longer open. I mean, these aren't hard things to call. And there's such large areas that we're talking about. And there's such big numbers of people, hundreds into the thousands, that it's not like we're talking about a couple of people where statistically you can really skew the data. All right, it's up 50%. It's not like that. It's like just sheer bodies. All right, so now you've got more in a 3-day period than you had in all of 2021. What's up with that? You can't hide those numbers. But, mainstream media, they'll just go, well, they're looking to make a better life for themselves and, they're escaping violence. Vast majority of these people swarming through our borders right now do not qualify for political asylum. Less than 1%. Less than 1%. So then what are we doing? Yeah. Kind of makes you wonder, right? Doing a whole lot of nothing, and then some might say a whole lot of shenanigans are going on. That's kind of where I'm at. It's like, well, what are all these folks? They're coming, they're going to work. Yeah. So many questions, so few answers. That's what I'm going to leave you with here. All right. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for supporting. Love to have you as a subscriber. This storyline is going to keep on going, but we've had that major shift. It's kind of where I want to leave you. Thanks again for being here. We'll catch up with you in the next segment. All right, let's move on to number trace. We're going to see what you guys are talking about on the, you guys are talking about RFK. You can never check in, but you can never leave. You guys are talking about the illegals checking out. How's that going to go? Do you think any of them are ever just going to go home? Probably not. Yeah, I was looking, Ironwood, I was looking at the Eagles song there too. You can check in. How's that song go? You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave. I believe that's the lyric. Don Henley. Never personally liked Don Henley and all his politics and stuff, but they did do some great songs. I've actually figured out that as an adult, most of the rockers, with the exception of like Ted Nugent, I don't agree with their political stances at all. Like I'm supposed to buy tickets for a small group of us to go to see Pearl Jam. Eddie Vedder, what's wrong with that guy? That guy's just, and he can never understand anything in his songs, but it's Pearl Jam. They're, Seattle Wonder. We're going to go see them. You can't see most of the other bands because their lead singers are all dead from overdoses. So there's that. But yeah, so many of the big bands that I grew up with, that I grew up thinking this is so cool. As an adult, politically, I'm just so far away from, what they believe in. You see Eric Clapton's another good example. He's pretty darn conservative to the point where you're like, where's this guy from? Isn't he from England? Is he from England? He's been here in the United States so long, and he just calls it out like he sees it. And he's kind of being ostracized. You're not going to see big tours from Eric Clapton because he's been kind of put in a little bit of a shoebox. The other guy that I've seen a couple of times now is Roger Waters from Pink Floyd. That guy does not like Jewish people. I mean, he came out wearing like some kind of Third Reich outfit onto the stage, and you're like, whoa, what do we got going on here? What are we doing here? And he's been very open recently about how, just doesn't like the Jews. Crazy. That kind of whole thing where you're a big star celebrity and you just run around just yapping your mouth. You know what? Sing your hits, keep your mouth shut, That's what we pay you for, right? No, those guys don't want to do that. All right, let's take a look. Now, yeah, here's that. We'll do this one. We'll do this one as a mini segment here. How about that? Let's do this. I'll do a straight on intro for this one. We've got a New York City law that would have allowed 800,000 non-citizens to vote locally. It has been struck down as unconstitutional by an appeals court, enacted in violation. Come to find out, you actually have to be a citizen to vote in elections in the United States. Let's get into it. Here we go. All right, I don't have any video on this one. So we're just going to go in and we're going to read it, because I hear from you guys so often that now they're building an army of voters, but the actual reality is there's so many communities, New York City being one of them, that have legally tried. Well, you've got all these people that we let in here. If they could only vote. And the way that they spin it is, well, we're going to get a better representation of the community if we allow all of these illegals to vote. And you're like, wait a minute, they're not even citizens. Doesn't matter. We're just going to do it anyway. We're just going to, that whole thing. Now, the court system consistently keeps coming up with, not a citizen, can't vote. All right. Controversial New York City law that would have allowed 800,000 non-citizens but legal residents to vote, non-citizens but legal residents, green card, to vote in municipal elections was struck down as unconstitutional by a state appeals court Wednesday. We determined that this local law was enacted in violation of the New York State Constitution and municipal home rule law, and thus must be declared null and void. I mean, they keep doing this. I guess try again, right? Wooten said that the state constitution broadly refers to only citizens having the right to vote in elections, municipal as well as statewide or for state legislative office. And what I always contend with is so far, because why else are we allowing just so many of these folks into the country? If you need that many people as part of your workforce, all right, just bring them in legally. This whole concept of, just parole and catch and release and stop building the wall, build the wall, stop building the wall, that whole thing. I think so much of what we're experiencing here with all this craziness is Biden's reaction and trying to appease his far left voter base who didn't want the wall, didn't want all of that. So he went ham on that. And then he went ham on the 64 executive actions. And then he ends up with this scenario. And now everybody's hammering on him because, you got states like New York City and what we've talked about today, things like that happening there. And so the mass, illegal immigration isn't a good look, apparently. I mean, who knew going into the 2024 elections that it would come down like this, right? I mean, not all that hard to figure out, huh? Article 9 provides that the elected officials of local governments shall be elected by the people, which incorporates by reference the eligibility requirements for voting under Article 2, Section 1, applying exclusively to citizens, the judge wrote. Citizens. Huh. Actually got to be a citizen. Interesting. Can't sneak that one through. Can't just try and, got all these extra folks here, and more than likely they're not going to vote red. So let's give this a whirl and we'll just see what happens. That's, some of the underlying current out there of they're trying to get a whole bunch of people in the country that are going to swing elections. And they're going to sanctuary cities, aren't they? Is this by plan? Some might say. The decision upholds a lower court ruling issued by Staten Island Supreme Court Justice Ralph Porzio. And that was in June of 2022, which Mayor Eric Adams and the City Council had appealed. Writing for the appellate court's second department, Wooten said that if non-citizens are allowed to vote, it stands to reason they can also run for mayor. Are you a citizen? No? Well, Mayor Smith, You know what I mean? That logic does make sense to me. So if you can vote, you can be mayor. All right. Yeah. He ruled that such a dramatic change violated the municipal home rule law, saying that the council and mayor had failed to put the issue on the ballot for voters to decide. Judges Angela Iannacci and Helen Vutsinas concurred in the ruling. Judge Lillian Wan issued a dissenting opinion. The majority, by deeming the non-citizen voting law invalid, effectively prohibits municipalities across the state from deciding for themselves the persons who are entitled to a voice in the local electoral process, she wrote. That's correct. And the reason for that is you need to be a citizen to vote, period. And I stand behind that. I mean, come on now. Otherwise, you're chipping away at the fundamentals of what the country was founded on. Not that there's a lot of that left anymore, but you've got some basic things. Hey, let's just let anybody be president. Hey, let's just let anybody vote. Hey, let's just do this. Let's just do this. And after a while, you've just got no framework for, now let's just get rid of the judicial system. You know, talking about the $50 an hour minimum wage. Some people are saying, oh, that's for California. No, it's a national thing. Either which way, $50 an hour, you start to work backwards, how bad that would be for whatever economy that gets put into it, because there's no sense of the free market doing its thing, which is this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. Therefore, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. You know what? You guys haven't been able to see the article. Do you care? Probably not. Probably not. You know what? Got this far. No article. What kind of podcast is this? This is terrible. Sorry about that, folks. You guys want to see the top? I just read it to you. So actually, I'm going to do this so that we can screenshot. We can use that down the road if we need to. All right, there it is. This is exciting stuff. I know we've already been through it. You already read it, but I gotta have some video of it. All right. Where did I leave off? Does it matter? The majority's determination, we're talking about the ruling, the two people that said, no, we're not doing this. The majority's determination also disenfranchises nearly 1 million residents of the city who are not legal. Period. Okay, so yeah, there's that. Despite the fact that it's people's duly elected representatives have opted to enfranchise those same residents. You got a whole bunch of illegal people in your community. That doesn't mean they get the right to vote. That's not how this works. That's not how the game is played. Shenanigans, right? Staten Island Borough President Vito Fasella was the lead plaintiff in the case, along with Assemblyman Michael Tenenusis, Republican from Staten Island, among others. During a time where nearly 200,000 migrants have flooded our city and streets, disrupting the public and attacking our police officers. Now, here's that narrative that I talk about, but not a lot of other people do. Attacking our police officers. My colleagues and I have worked tirelessly to protect our voting laws, which were created for citizens of the United States. Huh. Got to be a citizen to vote? Yeah. We need to reimagine. We need to rethink this. We need to get to the root causes. And F it. Just let anybody vote. Does that kind of feel like where we're going? Got to reimagine. Got to rethink. Those words drive me crazy. I have concerns on these people not being able to vote. Shut up. Democracy always wins, and I am proud to say it was delivered yet again today. All right, there we go. There's a democracy. You know what I think is crazy? Is when these libtards on the left, they're always like, democracy is at stake. And all you can think of is, it is. Why are you talking about it? You're the one eroding it. What are we even talking about? Democracy is at stake. Like, yeah, glad you could join the conversation. Look at what your team is doing. This isn't going well. They're poor people and they're running from violence. Again, just U.S. Representative Nicole Maliotakis. Did I pronounce that right? Probably not. Who represents Staten Island was also among the lawmakers who applauded the decision. Because, I mean, it's just basics, right? Got to be a citizen. Got to be a citizen. You can't just have random willy-nilly. Could you imagine, hey, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'd like to vote in your Italian election. What? Sir, that's not how this goes. Nah, I got my green card to work here. This should be fine. I'll just vote for whomever I want. I'll vote for, other countries. Hard no-go, right? Hard no-go. There is nothing more important than preserving the integrity of our election system. And in today's age, the government should be working to create more trust in our elections, not less. Huh. Interesting. The right to vote is a sacred right given only to United States citizens. It's my hopes that left-wing lawmakers stop pushing these unconstitutional and reckless measures that dilute the voices of American citizens. That's really what you're doing. And you know what? It's on purpose. Hey, these guys will vote for our side. Let's get them in there. Let's get them to, legally be able to do this. Let's see if we can just sneak this one through, sneak this case through. A city law department spokesperson said, we're reviewing the court's decision and evaluating our next steps. We're reimagining, we're rethinking, we're considering, we have concerns on this. It's corporate speak, right? I was listening to story the other day about, there was 3 franchises, 3 Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. We no longer call it Kentucky Fried Chicken because fried is no longer acceptable. And yet it's still KFC. And the F stands for fried. There was 3 franchises owned by the same franchisee in South Chicago that just abruptly got just closed down, just boom, shut down. And so there's this talk of, a lot of guys, Conservative Black Perspective, I think is the podcast I was watching. I love that guy. That guy he can cut to the chase because he's Black. And oftentimes he's talking about topics that are, they've got some type of, angle involved. And he just comes right out and says it. Yep, this community's hosed. They just got crime going all day long. Whereas the rest of us, we have to kind of pussyfoot around what's really happening. And you guys are robbing your own stores blind. Well, it was trying to figure out what the actual story is for these 3 Kentucky Fried Chickens in South Side of Chicago being closed up. I mean, how many other stores have we read about that have been closing in South Side of Chicago and West Side of Chicago? Mainly South Side. A lot. This is not something new. This is not wow, what's going on there? But the whole discussion is talking about corporate speak, where most of these corporations can't come right out and say exactly what's going on. And so they do the soft shoe of, we'd love to have you shop at our other stores here, and there. But in the case of the South Side in Chicago, just straight up, these stores, even though these stores are making money, Kentucky Fried Chicken is still very viable. I have not had KFC in so long, but I remember the last time I had it. It's delicious because it's fried, good chicken, it's fried. I don't really eat that anymore. It's still a very viable operation, but it just got so dangerous in the neighborhoods in South Side of Chicago that the owner just said, no siree, we outta here. We are gone. And so they were, and then just poof, it's gone. That one also did not have as much media coverage as one might expect, because you've got so many of these stories that are just outright proving, hey, you guys can bring this craziness to town, but it's going to go sideways on you. All this soft on crime policy. We don't need to have, bail bond. Bail bond not needed. Well, is anybody going to show up in court? Nope. And so then you've got people that multiple convictions. They're out on so many, 45 different warrants for their arrest. That's fine. And then they don't require bail on them again, because you've got this whole criminal system that is leaning to the left, which is, criminal system has been racist. Therefore, we're not going to charge anybody with crime. So you've gone down all these directions. It's like, the $50 an hour minimum wage. You throw that into a community, we'll see how that goes. You want to see stores close up. Throw that out there, right? Let's go ahead and put that out there. Seattle, I did released a podcast the other day Seattle just bumped up their minimum wage. And so DoorDash and Uber Eats, they put in a $5 surcharge so that they can get their prices to a point where they can make the minimum wage go. Guess what happened to business? Huge drop. They lost 30,000 orders inside of a short time period, $1 million in business. And this all impacts not only the Uber Eats drivers, the individual restaurants, their employees, people who rent them real estate. So, it's one of those just terrible policy ideas like this one here, which is, hey, we got a whole bunch of people in our community that sure would help us vote out, on our side. It would weigh the equation our direction. But never mind that whole pesky, you got to be a citizen thing. We'll just lob this out here and see. Now, in this case, the judges, they're looking at the law going, yeah, you got to be a citizen. No can do voting if you're not a citizen. So, but we should just let them in. It's better representation for the community. That's why you're seeing these cities just go so sideways, right? Seattle's on the struggle bus. Seattle has worked its way back with a handful of council members who are more moderate. By Seattle terms, they are straight up damn Republicans. They're just in. Because no Republican's ever going to get elected here in Seattle for anything, right? They're shunned. You're shunned. You don't ever see any red hats here. No, just none. Because you got a bunch of numbnuts running around. That's who I like to hang out with because, the competition just isn't really very fierce. Yeah, it's my hometown. And I've watched this whole evolution of Seattle just go sideways. And what I blame it on? I blame it on the attitude that's come up from California because so many people that are here are transports from California and they bring those values. And guess what? Those values do not work out long term. And that is what we're consistently seeing. It's the I told you so. There's so many cases of, hey, defund the police. We'll see how that goes. Hey, go ahead and enact a $50 an hour minimum wage. We'll just see how that goes. Let just anybody vote. We'll see how that goes. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Yeah. And Brandon Johnson of Chicago, he's finding out what could go wrong. Oh, you can't do that? Oh, weird. It's mind-blowing to me, but what do I know? I'm a real estate guy in the West Coast. All right, I'm going to end this segment here. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for supporting. Love to have you subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. And I will see you on the next segment. Bye for now. Live stream people, I'm going to check in with you, see what you guys are talking about. Popeyes suck. All right. I have never eaten at Popeyes. I just ate at Whataburger for the first time. Darren and I got off the plane in San Antonio, and I was starving. I think we had a late afternoon flight. We got in at like 6:30, and I was starving. I'm like, we went to a place that was going to be a better dining experience, maybe a beer or two. But we didn't do that because this is just not far from the airport either, San Antonio. It was packed. Whataburger was open, went to Whataburger. I was impressed. I did not think it was going to be that great, but burger was okay. KFC, you know what? I would say the drumsticks at Kentucky Fried Chicken, those are pretty good. Some of their rolls are pretty good too. Yeah, I remember the 1980s in Seattle. This is when a lot of people from Cali started coming to Seattle. I was cutting my teeth appraising in the mid-1980s, and we had so many purchases by people from California because they had massive equity from their homes in California, and they were coming up here to work for Bill Gates of Microsoft. And then the Bill Gates became, there's all these small little companies that support Microsoft and all their software endeavors, all those coders, and so tons of people up from Silicon Valley. And that's when things started to change, because if you think about it, Seattle is a community based on fishing and logging. Those aren't exactly libtard values, are they? So we've got this real dichotomy of old school. There's none of those folks left, right? Old school people, just, different times. I mean, this is a frontier town. And it was just, back in the day, it was tough. Literally Skid Row, is you'd skid the logs into Puget Sound so you'd get them on a shipping container and move them around the world. Skid Row, that's where that term comes from. You'd skid them down the main streets in downtown Seattle to the waterway and then ship them out. We've always had massive shipping coming in and out of Seattle. So, Seattle's got some history, but it is not blue hair and pierced septum and, not can't figure out if you're a man or a woman or you're somewhere in between. Those aren't the values that Seattle was founded on. And that's what I always, have in my mind, because as a kid growing up, you started to see that change happen. You started to see all the tech influence, and then the billionaires come out. And now it's just a wildly different world than the world that it was in the 1980s. So there's that. Blackbird, you're back. All right. Me too. All right. Missed potato. You guys are talking mashed potato. Oh, mashed potato. Who doesn't like mashed potato? Pretty good, right? Put enough butter in there. Oh, that's some good stuff. All right. I think we got one more. Oh, this is a good one. I think you guys are going to like this. The inside story is the Attorney General, Ken Paxton of Texas, he is calling a Catholic migrant shelter a stash house, and they are facilitating human trafficking. He is suing them accordingly. Does he have a point? That's what we're going to talk about. Let's get this bad boy going. Let me do this. No, that's not right. Okay, that's better. That works. I'm going to start off with this. So part of live streaming, and then also having all of these segments in a format that is easily editable, because as you know, what I'm doing is just literally my workday, which is recording these segments, and then they get cut up, a million different cuts and different, little pieces taken out and little things put in and that kind of stuff. That's done on the edit side, so that when you see the finished product, it doesn't have me, monkeying around with the microphone like you just saw. It doesn't have me going like this up here on a different screen. It's professional. It's the way it should be. But there's also a market, and thanks for tuning in, for you guys to be able to see what this looks like, on the back end, back door. Do we go there? No, we don't. Never mind. Yeah. Okay. How about those bears? Remember that in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? That's not a pillow. All right, here we go. The Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, he is saying that a Catholic migrant shelter is a stash house and is it's facilitating human trafficking. Is it just a church helping the downtrodden get into the U.S., or is it actual human trafficking going on that needs to be shut down? Let's get into it. Here we go. All right, that works. That's better. That'll work. There we go. Let's talk about that. Amor si se puede. What does that mean? Help me if you can. Is that what that means? Spanish. So terrible. Does it matter? Now you've got Google Translates on your phone, right? You can just tee it up and away you go. For almost 50 years, the El Paso Catholic charity Annunciation House has taken in poor homeless migrants from the streets of the border city and provided them food, shelter, and other services. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, however, says the shelter is an illegal stash house, which allows others to use its real estate, its location, to engage in human smuggling. Are they smuggling humans? Are they human smuggling? Does that just sound like it's an awful Republican thing to do? That's a repugnant Republican thing. This is terrible. This is horrible. Where is the sense of humanity? Here's where I say that sense of humanity is. So the 1 year, don't want to call it an anniversary, but the 1 year date of my son, who would now be 28, passing from a fentanyl overdose, drugs that were manufactured in China, shipped to Mexico, put together by the cartel, and then pushed across the southern border if we didn't have all of that, and if so many of these people weren't smuggling drugs into the country because they owe the cartel so much money, because they come in based on a small down payment, they owe $4,000. They take a cartel takes a note for $3 and says, "Hey, we'll let you work that off." If we didn't have that influence coming in from the southern border, all the drugs we do, which is about 110, 115,000 people ODing a year now, maybe my son right here would still be alive. So that's my son that's no longer with us. And he's been dead a year now. So my thought is, if we didn't have fentanyl streaming across the southern border, and who's bringing it in? Who's bringing it in? Well, the people coming through the southern border who are being helped by the El Paso Catholic Charity. Am I wrong? No, I'm not wrong. But I think most people think, all right, you've got a church. They're going to help. They're only going to help the good guys, right? The church only helps the good guys. But then these people are bringing drugs with them. And so many of them are already in indentured servitude coming into the U.S. because the cartel, whom these churches are helping get people to where they want to go. That's the rub. That's the tough rub for me is, would my son maybe be alive if fentanyl wasn't in the country in the numbers that it is? We're all the way up in Seattle. It's not like we're on the border, right? So the fentanyl pill with more than 2 milligrams of fentanyl in it, or it was a oh man, Xanax bar that was probably laced because he had a bunch of Xanax on him, street Xanax. You know, would he be alive if the southern border wasn't as porous as it was? Because since the current administration's been in office, it's just been a free for all. So all those drugs are just being brought in, and we know it. I mean, we know Sinaloa and the New Generation Cartel, they're both responsible for, bringing in enormous numbers of fentanyl-laced drugs, whether it's cocaine or meth or, straight up fentanyl, straight smoking the blues, oxy, whatever it is. We know that's going on. Would my son be alive? So as a church, you guys are helping the same people bringing the stuff in. Where do you draw that line? That's the tough one to know, right? So Texas Attorney General, his job is to make sure that the laws of Texas are upheld. And he is saying, no more drugs, no more human trafficking. Don't want to deal with that. Therefore, you guys, we've decided that you guys are aiding and abetting. So we're going to call it, and we're going to sue you. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, however, says the shelter is an illegal stash house, which allows others to use its real estate. We read that. Paxton's office has filed a lawsuit on behalf of the state of Texas that seeks to revoke Annunciation House's authorization to do business in Texas and asks the court to appoint a receiver to liquidate their assets. Man. Is that legit? I mean, he's totally legit in doing that. He has every right to do that if he thinks there's wrongdoing. Man, could you imagine my attorney general here? Our politicians here are so far left. Even the ones that say they're right. No. Texas's lawsuit against Annunciation House appears to be the opening salvo in a larger battle Paxton plans to wage against groups aiding migrants along the Texas border. Now, what I would say is that you've created this vacuum of pulling these illegals from all over the world by telling them, it's going to be a few grand. You'll get in, better life. They'll give you free stuff. And that's where all these sanctuary cities handing out literally millions and millions and millions of dollars. The next big boondoggle will be Eric Adams' boondoggle in New York City. It's going to be handing out debit cards with, no required name, no required ID, no required anything, no requirement of what you spend it on. I'm sure that'll work out fine. It should be fine. That's why he's doing a pilot program. If he says that it's going to go well, he's going to increase it. Literally up to like $2.5 billion could be handed out of New York City residents' money to illegal immigrants on a blank debit card. I'm sure it'll be fine. I mean, that's not another shenanigan waiting to happen, is it? Yeah, it'll be good. So my whole point to this is that the suction from telling everybody around the world it's go time at the U.S. border, you can come on in. Actually, Customs and Border Protection will help you once you get to the U.S. side of the Rio Grande in Texas. They will help you. They'll literally hold your hand and make your way through the razor wire because they want to get you in. And then Texas will put you on a bus and they'll ship you wherever you want to go. If you're having a tough time in life and you're in another country and you hear that, they're going to give you a free debit card. They're going to work with you and get you a job visa. They're going to make sure that happens. You know, you can, in the meantime, you can ride a scooter around and do deliveries. They've got that all worked out. You're going to get free clothes. You're going to get free food. You're going to get debit card. You're going to get legal services. You're going to get housing for 2 years. You're going to get. That creates that vacuum of people coming from all over, and the people helping them along the way, they're part of that vacuum, right? They're part of that vacuum. So I understand there's a need for human compassion, but what we've got going on right now far exceeds that, and I don't think it's right. Do I want to, take everybody that's in the country that's come here illegally and turn them back? I don't know how you handle that because they're already in, right? Good luck finding them. Not that magnifying glass. Are you illegal? Are you not? That's the whole racism thing with Trump, right? He's a racist. Now, he's kind of just calling it the way that it is. We don't know who these guys are. Bad hombres, right? When I heard that, I was like, well, I mean, yeah. And then you start looking at the numbers and you go, a certain percentage of those people coming through the southern border are going to be bad hombres. They're going to be gangsters. They're going to be gang members coming in from El Salvador. Guaranteed, right? I mean, United States? Oh, let's go there. We got an entire community in Honduras that is dedicated to San Francisco because somebody there learned the drug trade. And so now you've literally got Hondos selling drugs. It's probably a Hondo that sold the intermediary dealer to my son drugs laced with fentanyl that killed him. So, you put all those things in a line, and we don't know any of that because, you just don't know. But that has historically, that has been what's happening. Hondurans sling the drugs, and they've made so much money. They've got communities back in Honduras where they're building, kind of their version of mega mansions, and they're flying the San Francisco flag because there's one individual that basically taught them all how to do that. And, he's like a god to them. Why not? It's like a rock star. That guy gave us the American dream. Killing a lot of Americans, but don't worry about that. Get what's yours, right? Isn't that kind of where we sit in today's society? So the chaos at the southern border has created an environment where NGOs funded with taxpayer money from the Biden administration facilitate astonishing horrors, including human smuggling. While the federal government perpetuates the lawlessness destroying this country, my office works day in and day out to hold these organizations responsible for worsening illegal immigration. When you're explained it to it that way, you're like, yeah. And I think so many people say, it's not human smuggling. Well, who's bringing them in? The cartels are bringing them in. And most of these folks don't have the finances to fully pay off what they need to the cartels. So the cartels have them work here, and a lot of times for the ladies, they ain't selling drugs, right? They're selling their bodies. So if you're okay with that, and if you're okay with human smuggling, all right. And then other people want to say, but then Sean, Greg Abbott is putting them on a bus. That's kind of human trafficking as well. You're like, okay, yeah, but this is where they want to go. And the feds have already dictated that if you're in the country, we're going to get you wherever you need to go. We're going to get you to that sanctuary city. The whole thing is just so wildly messed up. Somebody needs to take control of it. And I hope it's a new president in 2024. What will actually happen there? I don't know. But what's happening right now can't continue. Well, it can. It's just, it's going to be shenanigans and that slow motion train wreck that we all talk about. Despite the reference to taxpayer money from the Biden administration and Paxton's statement above, Annunciation House says We have no permanent funding sources, and we have never accepted government funding. All right, so you're self-funded by donations from the community, whatever, but you are still, you know, are you enhancing the community, or are you creating, that draw for people to come in that otherwise might not get trafficked by the cartel, might not sell themselves into sex slavery on the other end to pay their debt? Well, where do you draw that line? We're only taking in the good guys. Only taking in the good guys. The Attorney General's illegal, immoral. This is from the Annunciation House, the place that's getting sued. The Attorney General's illegal, immoral, and anti-faith position to shut down Annunciation House is unfounded. Annunciation House has provided hospitality to hundreds of thousands of refugees for over 46 years. It's a work recognized by the Catholic Church and is listed in the National Catholic Directory. Annunciation House has done this work of accompaniment out of the scripture and gospel mandate to welcome the stranger. The stranger is one thing. These people are willingly coming here, breaking the law, entering the United States illegally. So that's where, all right, you can kind of find whatever you want to in the Bible, right? Eye for an eye, got to gouge out your eye. You did it to me. Tooth for a tooth, right? I mean, kind of come up with whatever you want. If the work that Annunciation House conducts is illegal, so too is the work of our local hospitals, schools, and food banks. Well, yeah. Somebody who's had a heart attack, putting them back together, that's kind of one thing. Housing people and, okay, you got here, you're okay. We're going to provide you shelter where you can't get busted. Well, nobody's really doing any busts right now. So what are you really doing? It's a wild situation, right? What do you guys think? In the comments, in the live chat, let me know. El Paso Congressman Veronica Escobar says Attorney General Paxton's actions against the charity are outrageous. Texans, I think, they don't have a problem coming down on anybody that's smuggling humans into the state because they have dealt with so much of that. And you know what? You see the two sides. When I was down in Shelby Park area of Eagle Pass, there was a bunch of protesters that came, locals from the community. And their big thing is, this is our river too. You can't just barbed wire it off. And we want to have people just stream across the border. It's all good. Because, they've got that whole, well, Jesus would have helped out the poor as well. Okay, but you've got so much more than just one or two of these people floating into the community that might need a little bit of Catholic help, right? You've got millions of people streaming in, and all of these NGOs that are helping them, some would say, aren't helping them. They're making the situation worse. So there's that fine line, whichever line you believe. There's that fine line. And when you've literally got 302,000 people coming across the southern border in the month of December, I'm going to have to go with, this has got to stop. That's not sustainable. It's ridiculous. And all the people that have kind of helped throughout that process, they've created that vacuum, and they're responsible for, the ridiculousness that we're about to see now in California and in Nevada and in Arizona and New Mexico, Oregon, Idaho. Because, don't think that just because you're not on the southern border, you're going to get some people. You're going to have lots and lots of people. Tennessee is one of those Middle Tennessee. There was a news story about how Middle Tennessee is going to get like 600 migrants. So everybody blew that up into, there's going to be thousands and thousands and thousands, coming to Nashville. Everybody gets kind of a little bits and pieces of the story incorrect. Well, it was a notification that I forget which governmental entity said that they had, or they sent to the city, one of those deals. You might have up to 600 illegals coming to your community soon. And then I've had so many different comments, either on live streams or on premieres or just videos themselves, of people telling me there's already a ton of people here in Tennessee. They're already here. They're everywhere because, If you're in the United States, hey, one state doesn't work out for you, go to another one. Go to Oregon. It's kind of like the drug, tourists. Hey, if San Fran doesn't work out for you, if the Tenderloin isn't your thing, go up to Skid Row. Skid Row doesn't work in LA, move on up to Portland, anywhere in downtown. You're all golden. Portland's not your thing. It's just, it's a little too not weird enough. Go up to Seattle. Things don't pan out in Seattle. Maybe you get busted. Things don't work in Seattle. Go up to Vancouver, BC. Straight line right up I-5. That's great. It's just great, right? You create that vacuum where people are going to go. Anywhere in the United States is going to be better for these folks relative to where they came from. Venezuela, Guatemala, Honduras, China, any of these places. These are good options. Ohio is a great option if you came from Venezuela. So don't think that just because you're in a town that's not sanctuary city, you're not going to see some of these impacts. You're probably not going to see them as much as a Chicago or a New York City, but this is throughout the United States. Annunciation House has received a temporary restraining order blocking the Texas Attorney General's demand for its records, and a hearing for a permanent injunction against that is scheduled on Thursday. The shelter has scheduled a news conference on Friday to discuss its response to the Attorney General's actions. Well, they're just going to say, hey, we're just a small church. We're a nonprofit. Why are we being prosecuted by the Attorney General? The Attorney General's going to say, you're human trafficking and selling people into sex slavery. And to an extent, I believe that side because this is what's going on. It's not just nice people coming into the country. And even if they are nice people coming into the country, oftentimes they're obligated so hard to the cartel to pay those debts. They're going to do some shenanigans to pay them off because the cartel takes what is theirs. That's why they're such a well-run business. They're going to take what's theirs. So you let a few million people into the country that are owed debt to a entity like multiple of the cartels. You're going to have some shenanigans. And that's what I'm here to report for you. So this story, this is going to keep going. How's this one going to go? I don't know. You know what I mean? Sometimes you read these stories and like, how's this one end? Who cares? No, this one has more implications because it's all the people, all the do-gooders out there, the NGOs, the mutual aid, all those people. We're just trying to help our fellow human being. Well, you're making it worse. You're making it worse is what a lot of folks would say. And I, to an extent, would say that because, my son, his little plaque is over there that his mom made for me. My son isn't here, and that's part of it. That's a big part of it. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thank you so much for being here, supporting, doing all that stuff. Love to have you subscribe if you haven't. Thanks again, and I will catch up with you on the next segment. Until then, be safe, and I'll see you then. Bye for now. All right. Let's see what you guys are talking about here. Then I gotta go eat some lunch. Had a little bit of a snack before I did this, but here in Seattle, man, we're getting close to 3 o'clock. I gotta get out in the golf course. I gotta go hit the links. Nah, I'm gonna go to the gym. What are you guys up to the rest of the afternoon or evening or whatever it is? Yeah, the United States should be out of human compassion by now. The inn is full. Fetty Schlepper, that's a great name. Yeah, the inn is full, right? I mean, why are we encouraging people to just stream on into the country? Oh, we got some harsh words here. I'll be back. Hold my place in line. They get cards with 10K now. Free housing, free food, free clothes, free medical, free everything, and we pay for it. Ironwood, that does seem to be the trend, doesn't it? I mean, it's like, okay, when are we going to wake up and figure, and by when, I mean the people that are, just bringing all these folks in, when are they going to figure out that taxpayer money is limited? Yeah, why do they all have cell phones? Mine cost me an arm and a leg. Agreed, John Saylor. That's one of the things I always think about is all these folks, if they're making such little, is a cell phone that cheap in their country? Well, I guess if you're close to China, and what do they cost? Like $10 to make? I think the iPhone, what is it? I know we're on Samsung Galaxy 24. The iPhone 15 costs like $10 to make, yet they sell it for 1,000. You guys remember when cell phones used to be free? Yeah. Initially, like the big bricks, those were a few $100. So you bought those, but then they turned into a model where you get the phone for free, and then they stuck you when you're all hooked on, talking on your cell phone, and the service. It's like nobody makes money in the actual razor itself. It's the refills that they make money on. So you get hooked on using that disposable razor. The actual handle and head, that's not, it's the actual razor refill. Probably saying that wrong, is what they get you on. But yeah, the cell phones, they all have cell phones, right? All have cell phones coming across the border, clothes that aren't absolutely torn apart because they're flying. They're flying into the United States now. They're flying to Tijuana. And then they get $400 trip, is my understanding from the cartel, to, the place east, about an hour east of San Diego. And they're getting dropped off. All right, you got to walk that quarter mile up there past that opening in the gate. People are bitching. We gotta walk 400 meters. Got to go a quarter mile. This sucks. Man, I'm gonna get my shoes all dusty. Nobody said I was gonna get dusty shoes doing this. What the F? I hope they take a little something. I hope the cartel, I hope the Sinaloa takes off a little bit off of my $5,000 I owe them, because I didn't sign up for this. You guys suck. You guys are just walking with their cell phone, literally with their earpiece in their ear, listen to Spotify. I mean, it's kind of insane, isn't it? It's kind of insane. But this is what we're doing. And this is what we get for basically opening the border up. And I mean by we, the current administration. Because I don't think any of us that are reasonable would think, hey, this is a good idea. Let's just see what happens. I'm sure, drop 10 million people into the country. It should be fine. I know we do need some of those folks as employees, because there's a lot of folks right now, the drug, tourists that I talk about, they ain't working. And we're paying for them as well. So at some point in time, the inn is full, isn't it? The inn is full. See what else you guys are saying. Yeah, with the prepaid cards in New York City, that's where everyone is going now. So I am checking out that story because there's a big story. It's 10 grand, okay, but it's over multiple years, and they're only loading 1,000 a month. That's one kind of theory. The other theory is that the 53.5 million dollars was a fee to the finance company. I podcasted on that one. Some people are saying, now that's the entire program. That's including money that's going to be handed out. Either which way, if you're coming from Honduras, if you're coming from Guatemala, if you're coming from Venezuela, and you hear $10,000 prepaid debit card that they're going to hand you that doesn't have your name on it, that you can do whatever you want to, you can't tell me there aren't going to be some shenanigans with how that money is being spent. How about if you're a single mom, you bring your 2 kids across, somebody finds out you've got a card and you've got a card for your kids, because kids can get cards too. Yeah, this program has basically no boundaries. So you're going to be able to get cards for your kids. Some bad hombre finds out that the, mamacita's got $3,000 in debit cards. You can't tell me she's not going to be a target. I mean, this whole thing just has train wreck written all over it. And the fact that Eric Adams didn't really work through kind of what's going on with this whole deal, he didn't tell the American public, this is what we're doing. He wasn't disclosing, and he says now that he was. But if you look through, exactly what's happened, he's saying this is a program that they've been kicking around for 3 years. Oh, it's interesting that you're enacting it now. What's that all about? Yeah. So all of these things entice people to come into the United States illegally, don't they? We got enough problems here. Can't tell me Portland doesn't have enough problems. Chicago and losing their Kentucky Fried Chicken. New York City, their cops getting beaten down, people being stabbed in the neck, other people, getting killed. Yeah, we just read all those stories, right? Just read all those stories. Now here we are. It should be fine. Shenanigans, who cares? Kind of feels like that's what we're doing, doesn't it? All right, I'm going to go get something to eat. Thank you guys all for being here for this long. I will catch up with you. I'm going to be on probably late morning tomorrow, and I'll see you then. So I hope you have a great rest of the afternoon or evening, wherever you are. And thanks again for being here. All right, we'll catch up soon. Bye for now.